Hello, beautiful souls, and happy World Tarot Day. Today, on May 25th, we join a global celebration of tarot, a sacred tool of insight, reflection, and spiritual growth. World Tarot Day was first created in 2003 by American tarot teacher Dan Elder, and since then, it's become a yearly moment to honor the wisdom of the cards. Its symbol, the Hermit, the seeker of truth in sacred silence, and its motto, the light you are looking for is the light within your own lantern. So today, let's take that lantern and go deeper. I invite you on a powerful esoteric journey into the realm of the High Priestess. Together, we'll explore her most iconic representations in the Rider-Waite and Thoth decks. We'll dive deep into symbols, archetypes, hidden meanings, and yes, we'll also debunk a few popular myths. Why is the High Priestess sometimes seen as a lover? Is she really the archetype of a tarot reader? And if not, then who is? Subscribe to Soul Symbols with Ksena if you haven't already, and like this video to support the growth of our spiritual and mystical space here on YouTube. Make sure to watch until the very end. This isn't just a breakdown of a card. This is an initiation into its hidden essence, and the priestess reveals her truth only to those who are truly seeking. To truly understand the evolution of the High Priestess archetype, we have to go back to one of the oldest tarot decks known to us, the Visconti-Sforza deck. This deck was created in the 15th century for the Italian nobility, the Visconti and Sforza families. At that time, the image of the High Priestess hadn't yet developed the many symbolic layers we see in modern decks. Still, the foundations of this powerful archetype were already present. In the Visconti-Sforza, the High Priestess appears as La Papessa, the female pope. She's dressed in papal robes and holds a book in her hand. This image is often associated with the legendary figure of Pope Joan. According to the story, in the 9th century, a brilliant and ambitious woman named Joan disguised herself as a man and climbed the ranks of the church, eventually becoming pope. Her identity was only discovered when she unexpectedly gave birth during a papal procession. One version of the story says she was stoned to death along with the baby. Another claims she was tied to a horse and dragged through the streets of Rome. Historically, however, this tale has no verified evidence. The first mention of Pope Joan appears only in the 10th century, about 400 years after the event supposedly took place. Some chronicles hint that a woman of Teutonic origin may have sat on the papal throne, but official history denies it. Interestingly, some sources, like the Chronicle of Milan, mention that a woman held the papal seat and that she was a Teuton. Since then, it's said that people from that region were barred from becoming popes. There's even a superstition that modern popes avoid taking a certain route during processions, the very path where Joan supposedly gave birth and met her end. Take a look at the famous engraving, The Whore of Babylon, a woman seated on a beast, taken from the Book of Revelation. She wears a Roman papal tiara. Now compare that to the lust card in the Thoth Tarot. The visual resemblance is undeniable. Another theory links the Papessa and the Visconti-Sforza deck to Manfreda Visconti di Pirovano, a woman from the Visconti family who was said to have claimed the papal throne. She belonged to the Umiliati, a religious order considered heretical. They believed that a woman would one day become the next Christ and lead the Catholic Church, in other words, become the female pope. It's worth noting that the Papessa in this deck is depicted in a way that suggests pregnancy, a subtle but intentional symbolic detail. The Papessa in the Visconti-Sforza sits calmly and with dignity. She holds a closed book, a symbol of secret or sacred knowledge. The book remains closed to all but those who are truly ready to receive its wisdom. On her head rests the papal tiara, a triple crown symbolizing spiritual authority over body, soul, and spirit. Her clothing is modest yet noble, emphasizing restraint, inner depth, and spiritual power. At that time, the image of the Papessa was a cultural provocation. The idea that a woman could be the bearer of sacred wisdom was radical. She is not a messianic figure like the Hierophant, but she is far from passive. She is the gatekeeper to the inner sanctuary, and she will only allow you to pass through if your heart is pure and your intentions sincere. When we turn to the High Priestess in the Rider-Waite deck, we step into a realm rich with esoteric meaning, deep symbolism, and subtle alchemical undertones. Created in 1909 through the collaboration of mystic Arthur Edward Waite and artist Pamela Coleman Smith, this deck laid the foundation for how most people today envision tarot. Waite's High Priestess sits between two pillars, Black Bee and White Jay, representing the two columns from Solomon's Temple, Boaz, strength, and Jachin, stability. These pillars symbolize duality, or what we might call the binary principle, light and shadow, active and passive, conscious and unconscious. She sits in the middle, not choosing one side over the other, but embodying the perfect balance between them. In doing so, she reminds us, one cannot exist without the other, just like life and death. Behind her hangs a veil adorned with pomegranates and palm leaves. It's a symbol of mystery. What lies behind the veil is hidden from uninitiated eyes, just as sacred knowledge is hidden from those not ready to receive it. The pomegranate, with its red flesh and many seeds, is a classic symbol of the feminine and of esoteric wisdom. Think about it. Its outer skin conceals the treasure within. No wonder Israel Regardie titled his book A Garden of Pomegranates, Scrying on the Tree of Life, a direct reference to the Kabbalistic path of initiation. On the High Priestess's lap is a scroll labeled Torah, a reference to divine law and sacred knowledge. But the scroll is only partially visible, tucked beneath her cloak. That's a clear message. True wisdom is not handed out freely. It is earned through initiation, purification, and one's own inner journey. She wears robes in shades of blue and white, the colors of the moon, intuition, and cold clarity. Her headdress resembles either the crown of Isis or a crescent moon, connecting her to ancient Egyptian mysteries. And beneath her feet is another crescent moon, the symbol of the subconscious, the intuitive, and the divine feminine. Waite's High Priestess is not just about knowledge. She's also about silence. She doesn't speak, she transmits. She leads not with explanations, but with images, symbols, dreams, and subtle signs. That's why this card is so powerful in readings about intuition, inner voice, and the hidden layers of the self. And so we come to the Thoth Tarot, an incredibly intriguing image, surreal, profound. The High Priestess here is depicted nude, which immediately points to the openness of truth, unadorned, without illusions, without filters. She is the pure essence of truth, untouched, eternal. In front of her is a veil of light, transparent like rays between worlds. Behind her stand two pillars, a familiar archetype of temple architecture, but not of an outer temple, for she resides beyond the veil. This is an inner sanctuary, a sacred space. She is positioned between the two, a portal, a gateway to the higher realms. On her head is a lunar tiara, a symbol of her connection to the nocturnal world, the subconscious, the hidden cycles, and mystical knowledge. Her hands are arranged in the shape of a crescent, a gesture of receptivity, readiness to receive messages from higher realms. It is also an allusion to lunar horns, the sign of the priestess, the keeper of mysteries. On her lap lies a bow. This is not merely a weapon, it is the symbol of the moon goddess Artemis, the chaste huntress, the protector of forests, the defender of the feminine. She is wild, independent, free. Artemis does not obey, she observes and punishes. And this image overlays with the High Priestess. She is virginal, yet immensely powerful. The lower part of the card is like the subconscious, filled with symbols that suggest the fruits of life, knowledge, experience, spiritual insights. These are seeds that sprout only in those who are able to pass through the veil. The camel is no accident. It symbolizes the Hebrew letter Gimel, which literally means camel. But for a Kabbalist, it means much more. It is the path on the tree of life. The path of Gimel is central, direct, vertical, leading from Tifereth, the heart, beauty, the conscious soul, to Kether, the crown, the source of divine light. It is the path to the Holy of Holies, and the High Priestess is the guardian of this threshold. She is the Virgin, but also Isis. In the temple of Isis at Sais, it was written, I am that which has been, is, and shall be, and no mortal has ever lifted my veil. This veil is the very curtain of mystery, purity, sacred initiation, and only the worthy may pass through it. The priestess in the Thoth Tarot is entirely detached from the material world. Her consciousness is directed upward, toward the abyss, toward spirit. She does not look back, she does not doubt. She leads those who are ready, and she will not allow any profaner to pass. If you mock esotericism, if you treat tarot as a game, she will not reveal herself. She sees the heart. Her permission is only for those who walk the true path. But here comes an important warning. The Thoth priestess in her shadow aspect represents the danger of straying from the path. The path of Gimel is narrow but straight. If this card appears in readings about business, action, or life direction, it's a call. Go straight. Do not waver. Do not hesitate. Be resilient like the camel. Act. Believe. Walk toward the light, but with a pure heart. Because if you reach the veil unprepared, Artemis will punish you. She does not forgive carelessness. She is a warrior. a huntress, a goddess who protects the sacred from the unworthy. And now that we've taken a close look at the High Priestess in the Thoth Tarot, it is time to compare her to the image from Rider-Waite's deck. Because it is in the comparison of these two key esoteric systems, the Waite tradition and the Crowleyan one, that the depth of the priestess archetype truly begins to unfold. When I look at the High Priestess from the Thoth Tarot, I get the feeling that my vision is distorted. Space seems to ripple, as if it's about to fold in on itself. Her figure appears to be hidden behind shading, behind lines and semi-ovals. She is blurred, unclear. Only the lower part of the card, where we see crystals, fruits, sprouts of life, and the camel, is sharp, comprehensible, visible. Why is that? Because the idea here is this. The card illustrates the path of Gimel, the same camel path that leads from Tifereth, the human heart, to Kether, the highest divine source. The upper part of the card is blurry because the divine is incomprehensible. It cannot be grasped by the rational mind. But the lower part represents the human realm, and there everything is clear. These are the fruits, the resources, the potential. The same idea, though more subtly presented, is also visible in the High Priestess of the Rider-Waite Tarot. Remember the veil with pomegranates behind her, and the arrangement of the fruits in the shape of the tree of life? She sits exactly on the middle pillar, and that is the same path of Gimel. And behind that veil, we see something resembling the sea. This is another reference to the symbolism of the path. Both cards, in Waite's and Crowley's decks, are strongly infused with lunar symbolism. Moons in the tiaras, crescents by the feet or on the body, nocturnal imagery, all this speaks to sensitivity, intuition, hidden processes. The overall meaning of the priestess is the archetypal feminine, the higher mother, deep knowledge, understanding of truth, wisdom, intuition. It is the divine light that both reveals and conceals. She is the mystery. But where is the main difference? The Waite priestess clearly conveys the theme of duality. Look, the two pillars, black and white. The scroll, half visible, half hidden. One hand is open, the other obscured. Her entire figure seems to say, there is another side. This is a card of binary knowledge. Without darkness, we cannot understand light. Without evil, we cannot appreciate good. Without the unknown, we cannot recognize true knowledge. That's why in readings, the Waite priestess often points to hidden aspects of a situation. She says, you don't know everything yet. It's when something seems obvious, but there's a deeper second layer. Like reading a contract and missing the fine print. That's where the essence is. The Thoth priestess, on the other hand, is not just about the hidden. She is also about potential. In the lower part of the card, we see fruits, sprouts, crystals, symbols of fertility, growth. Life has possibilities. Crowley writes directly, this is Artemis, the chaste yet fertile goddess, the guardian of life. On her lap lies a bow. She protects, but she also gives the power to break through. So, in a reading, the Thoth priestess often indicates there is potential in the situation, even if you can't see it right now. It's like a seed that has not yet sprouted, but it's already in the soil. And if you endure the journey, if you don't stray, if you're not frightened by the silence or the unknown, you will receive the fruit. Meanwhile, the Waite priestess, in more everyday questions, tends to point toward uncertainty. She's more about pause, hidden information, the lack of clarity in the moment. She doesn't give predictions. She says, wait, look deeper. It's too early to draw conclusions. So, both priestesses are magical, sacred, but each has her own quality. One guards the secret, the other lets you see that it's growing. One closes the door, the other holds the key. In some Eastern European and post-Soviet esoteric circles, where I personally began my journey, the High Priestess is sometimes interpreted as the archetype of a hidden lover. This may sound unusual to a Western audience, especially those trained in Anglo-American or Golden Dawn-inspired tarot schools, where the priestess is typically seen as cold, pure, and mystical. But allow me to explain. This interpretation doesn't come from sexualization. It comes from the symbolism of secrecy and inaccessibility. The priestess sits behind a veil. She is distant, quiet, and hidden. And because of that, some readers, especially in relationship spreads, see her as the other woman. Not in a literal sense, but symbolically. She is the woman you can't touch, the one who exists in mystery, and this very unattainability triggers projection and desire in the querent's subconscious. In certain contexts, especially in questions like, is there someone else? The priestess may be read as representing a hidden connection. but only when combined with supporting cards and intuitive insight. This interpretation reflects a cultural layer, a lens that Eastern European readers sometimes apply based on collective archetypes and lived experience. This is important. The priestess is not a seductress. She is not romantic or emotionally driven. She is a still force, a mirror, a gate. If some see her as a lover, it's only because she exists beyond reach, and that can feel magnetic, even erotic, to the ego or shadow self. The virginity of the High Priestess is often misunderstood. In tarot symbolism, this is not about physical abstinence. It's about spiritual sovereignty. Virginity in this context means she belongs to no one. Not emotionally, not intellectually, not spiritually. She is self-contained. Like Artemis or Diana, she walks alone by choice, not from fear or rejection, but from sacred clarity. In the Rider-Waite deck, we see her dressed in blue and white, colors of the moon, silence, and purity. The scroll marked Torah in her lap signifies secret knowledge, not for the masses, but for those ready to receive. Her energy is cool, serene, and discerning. She does not reveal herself to everyone. In the Thoth deck, she appears naked, and paradoxically, that nudity is her greatest protection. Nothing to hide, nothing to offer, nothing to manipulate. Her virginity is not about denial of pleasure. It is about complete truth. She does not give in to expectation. She stands pure as a direct channel to divine will, untouched not by accident, but by sacred design. Let's pause on a question I hear surprisingly often, especially from those new to the tarot path. Is the High Priestess supposed to represent the tarot reader? It's an understandable assumption. After all, she holds a scroll, sits between two pillars, and radiates deep, intuitive power. She feels like someone who knows secrets, and that aligns with the idea of a reader, right? But in reality, her role is much deeper and far more symbolic. The High Priestess is not the one giving readings. She is the one we connect to when we read. She embodies Gnostic knowledge, the kind of knowing that doesn't come from study or logic, but from direct inner revelation. Her scroll marked Torah is not a book you can open. It's a metaphor for a sacred law, a higher principle, that reveals itself only to those initiated into occult mysteries. This is esoteric science, not empirical fact. It's the language of the soul, not the mind. That's why the priestess is not a tarot practitioner. She doesn't interpret spreads or answer questions. She is not the messenger, she is the threshold. When we read cards, we step into her space. We touch the silence behind the veil. We channel not from ourselves, but from that place, the inner temple she guards. She represents a level of consciousness where truth is not spoken. It is known, and that kind of knowing cannot be taught in a course or found in a guidebook. It's accessed only through stillness, devotion, and spiritual readiness. So, who truly embodies the archetype of the tarot reader? Surprisingly, it's not the High Priestess, it's the star. In the mystical tradition, the star carries the hidden name intuition, not as a vague feeling, but as direct knowing that flows from divine connection. The star symbolizes the stage of knowing where a person is no longer guided by external knowledge or intellect, but by higher will and wisdom. It's intuitive knowing, the ability to read the energy, feel the signs, and receive guidance from the universe. The star is the tarot reader's true archetype, the one who can sense the field, who knows when and how to act, and how to interpret the cards in perfect alignment with the moment. It's fascinating that the star has other names in occult tradition: the gift of prophecy, the star of the Magi. She represents the ability to feel astral forces deeply and perceive what's happening on an unseen level. The tarot reader, relying on intuition, follows this inner voice, the one that leads to true answers, even when logic and rational thinking cannot reveal the full picture. The star allows us to see the world through symbols, signs, and energy flows. The tarot reader, as the interpreter of those signs, can recognize the moments to act, or when to leave things as they are. So, while the High Priestess is not a tarot reader herself, her intuitive knowledge is still a vital part of what makes the tarot reader sensitive to the energy of the cards. But it is the star, the 17th major arcana, that truly represents the one who receives insight through intuition, and applies that knowledge for practical guidance and understanding of the present. I especially love how occultist Paul Foster Case describes the star. It is the search for truth in the depths of the unconscious. The Hebrew letter assigned to this card carries ideas of experiment, exploration, and inquiry. It's the search for what hasn't yet been clearly defined, something we sense, something we feel. It's like casting a line into the water, an attempt to reach the invisible, to solve a mystery, to follow faint traces that might lead to a revelation. In English occult tradition, the star corresponds to the Hebrew letter Zadeh, which means fish hook. The symbol and the card both represent the act of reaching into the depths of the cosmic mind and drawing out true knowledge, like catching a fish from a river. The star is the third stage of spiritual awakening. The journey begins with belief, deepens into faith, and finally awakens into direct experience. The star marks that awakening. You become convinced that spirit exists. You believe in spirit. And then you feel spirit. You experience its presence. Many seekers walk within the first two stages, and the star invites them into the third, where truth is no longer something we believe, but something we live. There is even a fourth stage, where one dissolves the personal soul and merges fully with the Creator. The star represents a phase of consciousness where the true nature of things becomes visible, and to put it simply, the star is the card of prediction. It's the compass, the inner light that ignites the moment we step onto the right path. My name is Ksena, and I've been practicing tarot for over 10 years. The video you've just watched is part of what I'm here to share with you. Not only knowledge, but also my real experience as a tarot practitioner. I'm from Ukraine, and while my English isn't perfect yet, I'm working on it every day. That's why you're hearing AI narration in this video. But don't worry, this voice doesn't reflect the level of my tarot skills. It's simply a tool to help you receive this message clearly while I continue improving my speaking abilities. Very soon, I hope you'll hear my own voice in English, once I'm ready to speak directly with you. My experience and knowledge are the foundation on which this channel and my future videos will be built. So please subscribe to Soul Symbols with Ksena, like this video if it was helpful, and leave me a comment to share your impressions. Let's stay connected on Instagram and TikTok. All the links are in the description. I look forward to sharing more with you and supporting your journey into the deeper mysteries of tarot.